Well, good afternoon. This is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant afternoon. And here is some incredibly interesting information. It's sad, it's tragic, but it is so in your face, it is almost undeniable. And this is the number of sports celebrities and athletes that have been basically dropping on the field. And this was an article I was reading about the footballers in England, where there's been a sudden rash of incidences with heart problems, blood clotting, so on and so forth. And I got about, I don't know, a paragraph in, and I thought, I'm just going to do a search for that. So I go on to DuckDuckGo and I look up the history of on-field collapses in soccer. And all of a sudden, it's like it was the first one that popped up. There has been a 60-fold increase in players collapsing on the field, whether it be in basketball, baseball, soccer, football, training, or in a full-fledged game. And this is so unheard of, and it's all taken place in the last 4 months since the inoculations have been rolling out. And of course, interesting enough, I noticed with this new variant, the Omicron, which ironically is an anagram of moronic, guess what the symptoms are of this new variant? Oh, myocarditis, heart problems, stroke, all kinds of things that are happening now from the inoculations, the side effects. And unfortunately, it's come a little late in the day. And as I said before, truth is our greatest weapon. And these people who are in charge have tried everything in their means to suppress any connection, any talk. You go onto any platform, whether it's Facebook or YouTube, Twitter, so on and so forth, it doesn't matter. You cannot talk about this particular subject. So they've tried to suppress it, but guess what? Because these people need bread and circuses to entertain the masses, which always involves their sports styles, because they have such an incredible following. It's pretty hard to explain away people actually dropping on the field right in front of your very eyes mid-game, and the only thing that's changed is they've had an inoculation. Over 60 times increase in pro sport adverse events since the inoculations rolled out. Nobody can explain that. Some poo-poo these events, saying that they happen all the time. True, they do, but not at this rate. Something happened in 2021 that changed things by a lot. Can you guess? First, take a look at this video posted by my friend Robert Malone.
High school senior is in the hospital after collapsing on the tennis courts.
Breaking new details on the deaths of a high school soccer player.
Finland, Denmark star man Christian Eriksen collapsing towards the end of the first half.
The Kennedy High community mourning tonight after one of their high school football players died.
A South Carolina high school football player has died after collapsing at football practice.
Star college basketball player collapsing on the court. We want to warn you, the video may be difficult to watch.
Florida Gators star Giante Johnson collapsing during the game.
A West Catholic high school student has died after collapsing during a football scrimmage.
On mile 8, she suddenly felt fuzzy and blacked out.
17-year-old Ryan Jacobs' heart stopped.
Unexpectedly collapsed on the field.
Megan went into cardiac arrest.
Collapsing during Friday night's football game.
The reason for his collapse is unknown.
The reason why Manny collapsed in the first place still isn't known.
So you might be wondering how someone in such great shape could suffer cardiac arrest.
It's a rare thing that happens.
corner
say.
Now, the football players, or soccer players, sorry, I should say, are really interesting because, you know, they have to be probably the fittest athletes on the face of the earth. Okay, they run two half-time periods of 45 minutes. There's a break at half-time for, I think, 30 minutes. But they basically run for 45 minutes non-stop. And now, I don't remember in my history ever seeing an athlete collapse on the field unless it was from heat prostrate, yes, that's right, heat prostration, not prostate, or they were high altitude. There was some, you know, very explainable thing taking place. But for this to be 60 times, anyway, let me just show you these two articles, and then we'll come back and I'll do a quick wrap up. Okie dokie, here we go. And this from Steve Kirsch's newsletter. Over a 60 times increase in pro sports adverse events since the inoculations rolled out. And this from Robert W. Malone, MD. Safe and effective? Are these vaccines that you want to have mandated for injection into your children? California parents? Let's go, Gavin. Now, in the comments of that tweet, you'll see that people say these events happen all the time. True, they do. For example, this death of Pierre Marino Morosini that happened in 2012. But they don't happen at this rate. No way. That's the thing nobody can explain, and it only started after the inoculations rolled out, and with very few exceptions, only 2 inoculated players, which isn't surprising since most all players are forced to take the jab. The inoculation advocates find all of this super irritating. They have no rational excuse on this. They can't use ad hominem attacks. They can't use goofball hand-waving arguments. Nothing explains what everyone is observing. All of these cases have been properly reported and are documented. No mentions except one case of inoculations since the press doesn't want to create inoculation hesitancy, but the numbers speak for themselves. The numbers, as documented below, show that there have been more events over a recent 4-month period than in over 20 years, which is more than a 60-fold increase in event rate. All of these are in full public view, so there is no reporting bias involved, and the numbers are big enough that nobody can say, oh, well, that's just statistical nonsense. Not a chance. It's just too hard to explain. That is why there are articles like these. German news agency tracks 75 prominent athletes suddenly dead of heart attacks after CV inoculation. Wow. We have a very clear mechanism of action, and we have overwhelming confirmation from the VAERS data that the vaccines are super dangerous and cause cardiovascular and neurological severe adverse events at a very high rate. Nothing else can compare to the inoculations when we talk about heart damage. So if you believe these events really did happen, they are in plain sight after all, then you must ascribe them to the inoculations, since there is nothing else all these people have in common that could cause such an extreme elevation of events. Also, the Jessica Rose myocarditis paper that was unethically temporarily removed by Elsevier over the objection of the editor of the journal and in violation of all known scientific protocols. Well, the paper had a very clear conclusion. The heart damage wasn't confined to 16-year-olds. It had a long tail. In other words, it can affect people of all ages, not just teenage boys. That's what they don't want you to know. So now you know. The peer-reviewed science says that the heart damage isn't limited to teenage boys. They are still unethically suppressing this as of November the 13th, 2021. So there is a smoking gun for the damage done to these athletes. The inoculation. None of these players had CV at the time of the event, since they are all tested. If this isn't the inoculations causing the heart damage, then what is causing all of these events to happen at such a high rate? Good question. Here's an email I just got from Terence Vizo. I've been watching soccer for over 30 years, and I can only remember 2 players collapsing previously with heart complications, both of which were undiagnosed genetic defects. One of these players unfortunately died. The other was saved by the good fortune of having a leading London-based cardiologist sitting in the crowd just feet from where he collapsed. The doctor rushed onto the field and performed life-saving treatment. Now the landscape has changed. These events are happening on what appears to be a weekly basis. This article lists and names a staggering number of athletes being taken ill with heart complications, and I'm just going to link that below rather than read it all out. And this from RT. What's happening? Football faces questions over series of player collapses. A rash of high-profile scares has led to questions over the state of footballers' health and whether we are seeing more incidences of players suffering heart problems. This week brought more disturbing news for football. On Wednesday night, Adama Traore of Sheriff Tiraspol fell to the ground while clutching his chest during the Champions League game with Real Madrid. The Malian winger remained conscious and was eventually helped off the pitch, although there have been no further reports of what caused the worrying incident. In England's second-tier championship on Tuesday, there were similar fears when Sheffield United player John Fleck crumpled to the ground during a match with Reading. The Scotland international received around 10 minutes of medical treatment before being helped off the pitch, also being given oxygen. The 30-year-old was taken to hospital but has since been released. So, like I say, this is very sad, tragic and stunning information, and but it's so in your face. I think this is going to be undeniable. They can try and explain it away as much as they can, but as I have a friend whose parents died within 2 weeks of the inoculation, and you will never convince her otherwise. Her mother was a healthy woman. Now her father did have a cancer, but it was in remission, and so that is a comorbidity. But her mother was a beautiful, athletic, up in her late 60s, early 70s. She had really looked after herself, and there was nothing that had changed in her life except for that one thing. And so there you go. And of course, when I saw that video that I put up of the all of them happening, it's only a 2 minute, well, less than a minute and 50 seconds long, but it's like relentless, absolutely relentless. Anyway, I hope this is food for thought, and that you will give this careful consideration, that there is a connection here and we can no longer hide what is going on. Okie dokie, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe below, and in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant afternoon, and we'll talk very, very shortly. You take care now. See ya. Bye.